In this video, I'm going to break down 7 signs that a man has unresolved daddy issues. We always hear about women having daddy issues, but what if the man pointing the finger is wounded too? In male spaces on the internet, this topic gets joked about or ignored altogether. But the truth is, a lot of men are carrying deep father wounds that shape how they show up in relationships, handle conflicts, or lead their lives. Here is how to tell if you or a man you know has daddy issues. And feel free to pause the video whenever you want to take a screenshot or take notes as I go through each one of these signs. And yes, I do have other videos on the channel of do women have mummy issues or daddy issues, which I'll link down below and they'll pop up at the end of the video. But now I'm just reverse engineering this and doing it on men because it must be mentioned. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The first sign that a man has unresolved daddy issues is that he's hyper independent. In other words, he is Mr. I don't need anybody. What does this mean? This means that the man prides himself on doing everything alone. You don't ask for help. You see it as weakness. You push people away when they get too close. This is where you see guys that are lone wolves. They don't really have close guy friends. Or when you start dating a woman, you can't feel like you can't trust her and you just push them all away. To some it might come across as a strength. Oh, he looks really confident, he can do it all alone. But it's often a trauma response. Human beings, not just women but men, we're all made to be social, to live in cohesion, to live together, to connect, to bond, to be intimate, to share and grow together. Nowhere in human existence has there ever been one man who's gone off alone like a lone wolf. You don't survive like that, let alone thrive. So the wound here is no one's coming to save me. I have seen countless men on the internet and clients that I work with over the years spounge something to this effect. You can't trust other people, everyone's out to get you, you can never trust anyone, no one's coming to save you, you just got to do it all on your own. Where is that coming from? Well, simple. From here. From a young age, as a man, you learned early on that your emotional needs weren't being met, so you stopped having any. Maybe your father was absent, maybe he was drunk, maybe he was out cheating on your mom, maybe he was abusive, maybe he was financially irresponsible, or he was never home. But your needs for growth, variety, love, connection, they were never met by him. So you learned somewhere along the line that I don't have a bond here, so I'm just going to internalize and just do everything alone. When as a boy, you're supposed to rely on your father, learn how to live, and be sent off on your way. But you didn't learn that process. Number 2 is you feel that being vulnerable is too dangerous. And don't confuse it, gentlemen. Vulnerability isn't you crying and talking about your sad feelings. No. Being vulnerable is saying what you mean and meaning what you say. It's wearing your heart on your sleeve. It's being direct and decisive, being right to the point. If someone disrespects you, you call them out. If you have something to say to someone privately of a matter you need to be resolved, you tell them. If you've got a woman in your life that you love, you have no problem telling her you love her, you miss her. You can just genuinely tell her how you truly feel. If that makes you feel uncomfortable or you feel like you just can't be open enough to communicate clearly with a woman, with friends, or with family, then you fear rejection. You fear opening up because you don't know what they're going to say. And last but not least, you don't rely on anyone because somewhere deep down you don't believe you can. If that sounds like you, these are very clear signs that you got daddy issues because you couldn't rely on your father. So perhaps you learned to really rely on yourself. And now as an adult, you just became hyper independent and you're just trying to protect yourself. The second sign that a man has unresolved daddy issues is you have a problem with validation. If you're constantly chasing wins through money, chasing after multiple women, status, success, you don't rest, you don't feel good enough unless someone is praising you or watching. And this is something we see a lot with young men today. They're on Instagram, on Facebook, posting their gym pictures, flexing a car, flexing the trip they're going on, flexing their watches, because they're insecure. And the core wound here is, if I can impress people, I'll finally feel seen. Why? Because your father didn't give you the emotional attention you needed to build up your self-esteem. So because you feel like you missed out on that, it's a compensation now as an adult. Now that you have money, or you're in better shape, or you're doing good for yourself, you don't feel comfortable in your own skin with these achievements or successes. You want other people to see, and you want them to give you praise and the strokes that your father didn't give you. So maybe your father only reacted to your results or how you achieved things, or maybe he didn't at all. So now it's all a reaction to what you're doing. So maybe you started performing to get love, not just to get better. And you see this a lot with fathers that are absent, fathers that are away working all the time, or they never really have time for their kids, or they're just sitting there watching the football. Maybe as a boy, when you try to get your dad's attention, you want to spend time with him, he just didn't really have time for you. So you learned, okay, if I do certain things, or I really, really try, maybe I'll get his attention. And these are the guys that become super needy when they're in a relationship with a woman. They double text, they triple text, they chase after women that don't want them because they think they have to earn and win love. They don't think it's a two-way street. So it's that lack of self-worth. So now as a grown man, you still try to prove your worth, but you feel worthless. And this is why, from my analysis, when I see a guy flexing his watch or his car, talking about how much money he's making, I can see right through it. Confident men that are doing well, they don't need to post it on an Instagram story. They don't need to tell strangers about how good they're doing. They keep things private. And ultimately, if it's true that people are doing well and for the right reasons, it'll be evident in their actions. So if you've got a validation problem as a man, that's where it comes from. And a lot of guys want to point the finger, women validation. It's like, nowadays it's more so men with daddy issues that are like this. Sign number 3, inability to handle criticism. Any kind of feedback makes you defensive. You either shut down, lash out, or feel attacked, even if the person's being calm. And the wound here is, you've never felt like you'd ever be good enough. And this usually stems from being raised on harsh authoritarianism, not loving guidance. You know, kids growing up in really strict homes, and there's nothing wrong with being given boundaries and a structure, but where there's no free will, where there's no love, and it's just this strict guideline you must follow, you might feel like you're never going to be good enough because you're confined to the boxes or the limitations that were put upon you as a child. So when you get criticized, maybe a friend or a girl in your life or a loved one gives you advice or sees one of your blind spots and offers some help. It doesn't feel like help to you. It feels like you're being rejected because you don't feel like you're good enough. So if somebody points out there's a flaw, that will destroy your ego. Whereas a man who has a healthy self-esteem, if someone calls him out on a mistake or a problem or a pattern in his behavior, he's going to think about it and go, he's going to analyze the situation. Okay, maybe if they're right, I'll humble myself. I'll listen to that. Thank you for pointing that out. You know? But if you can't do that, that's where it comes from. Because deep down, you feel like mistakes equals you being unlovable. Hence why you never feel good enough, which is why as a man, you can't handle criticism. This is why a lot of these men that become hyper successful, or they just do very well for themselves, they're not even doing it righteously to really give value to the world, to provide for their wife and children. They're doing it because it's an ego thing. I'm going to prove my parents wrong. I'm going to prove my ex wrong, or any crap like that, right? I'm going to show the world how successful, how good I am at what I do. And these guys are just still little boys inside who just haven't grown up. They're still trying to impress dad and mum. And men that have been raised by fathers that are very, very authoritarian. They're super strict. They don't leave room for error or a mistake. You know, you failed one exam as a kid, or you do one thing wrong, or you're not home in curfew, the punishment is so severe. And there's no balance, there's no love on the other end, that they turn you into someone hyper successful, but not for the right reasons. You're running off of fear, not of love. So that's the third sign. And the fourth sign is anger that comes out of nowhere. 1 minute you're fine until you're not. Something small sets you off and suddenly you're yelling, you're cold, you're withdrawn. You don't even know where it comes from. And the wound here is you never got to speak up. Remember, anything you sweep under the rug, it explodes later on. You see it with these guys that they're trying to be nice guys, but they're not really nice guys, they're weak guys. Because you can be a good man, right? A nice man. But you also have to be a man who's direct, who calls people out when they wrong you, who says what he means and means what he says, who lives by his principles, who calls himself to a higher standard. If you're Mr. Nice Guy and you let everybody do wrong to you, or you just let things happen and you never take control of your life, these guys are the ones that get a lot of anger built up. But because they don't know how to express or communicate, it's kind of like putting Mentos in a Coke bottle. It gets shaken up and then one day it just explodes. If you don't express what's in here, it's going to come out in uglier ways later on. And if you're the type of guy who never got to speak up as a kid, maybe very domineering parents, as a kid you were never allowed to express your emotions, especially negative ones. So as a boy, whenever you were scared, angry, sad, upset, hurt, your dad always told you, be quiet, or he just shut you down. He told you to just snap out of it. Maybe he punished you when you expressed a negative emotion instead of helping you understand what those emotions mean and how to come out stronger on the other end. You just bottle things up. So you learned, right, when something bad happens now to me in life, I'm not going to speak. And these are the guys that get with a girl who has red flags. She treats him badly. He swallows his pride, he doesn't say anything, and one day when he can't take it anymore, he lashes out, he swears, he screams, he's nasty, he says horrible things, because he didn't know how to communicate at the beginning. So you swallow everything, and then it leaks out as explosive reactions. And ultimately, that rage you carry now, it's not about now, it's about back then. So if as a man you've noticed, from just me mentioning this, number 4 here, anger that comes out of nowhere, think back on times, crucial times in your life, where negative things have happened to you as a teenager or an adult, and think back to any situations in your childhood where it has a link, where it could have affected you. And this is something that is really big. And guys that are stuck in this state, they don't make good boyfriends or husbands, let alone good fathers, because if you don't heal this wound, and you don't know how to speak up and communicate clearly and say what you mean, you're going to have people walk all over you. You're going to settle. You're going to be miserable. You're not going to know how to lead a woman. You're going to be a pushover, and it's going to affect you. If you poke a dog enough times or a lion enough times, it's going to react. And it's the same thing with human beings. If you don't say what needs to be said in a calm, rational manner, you build everything up, you go cuckoo. Be very careful. Number 5. This one's a classic one. People pleasing. If you're the type of guy who avoids and the funny thing is they're all linked together, right? You're Mr. Independent, right? I don't need anyone. You seek validation because you've got low self-esteem. You can't handle criticism because you see it as an attack on your ego. You have weird bouts of anger because you don't know how to communicate rationally. Number 5 is people pleasing. If you avoid conflicts at all costs, you'd rather shrink, bend, or stay quiet than rock the boat. You're always the nice guy, but you feel invisible and unfulfilled. Well, then that's you. And people pleasing men are the types of guys who always attract domineering women that mistreat them. Or if they get lucky to find a good woman, they don't even have the discernment to lead her properly because they're passive. So they end up losing her or really turning her off. And the wound here is, if I keep the peace, I'll stay safe. This is very common when you had a parent or a father that was very abusive, very aggressive. And the second you spoke up, opened your mouth, or did anything out of line, the punishment was often something physical or emotional that was so severe that it just scared you into just keeping your mouth shut. So now you're stuck in this state of, you know what, you learned as a survival mechanism to just not speak your mind. So now as an adult, you're a people pleaser because you fear repercussion. So if you grew up walking around eggshells around a father who was critical, absent, or explosive, you learn to be agreeable as a survival strategy, you're still afraid that being honest will cost you love. Number 6, you struggle to, and getting close to the end here, you struggle to connect emotionally. What does this mean? You care about the people in your life, but you don't connect. You feel misunderstood, emotionally distant, or disconnected, even from the woman you date. It's like you're stuck in your head all the time. And the wound here is, you think that emotions are weakness. I see this with so many of these alpha male dating coaches online. You know, they're always talking about how a man doesn't have emotions, how a man's non-reactive, but they don't understand emotions. Human beings are emotional. Everybody has feelings. It's what you do with them that matters and counts. To say that men don't have emotions is why men have the problems that they have nowadays. They don't know how to express them. Because when you tell a young boy that feelings are bad, he shuts them off and they explode. And then you get into a relationship and you get these guys that are like, they're emotionally like dead fish. They don't say I love you to their woman. They don't know how to romance their woman. They don't know how to give or receive love properly. They're just like these blobs. So if you think emotions are weakness, what this means is you weren't taught as a child on how emotions function. You feel uncomfortable being fully seen. You're afraid that if a woman or your friends or your family see you with all of your flaws and your strengths, that you're somehow going to be exposed or not accepted. So you always keep a part of yourself closed off to yourself. And if you want to have good relationships with friends, with family, with a woman, and you can't be fully honest, then you're never going to have a 100% relationship. It might be 60 or 70%, but that 30% that you keep hidden is the part that will hinder you in your love life, in your relationship life, because it's going to pull everything down. When you keep secrets or you hide parts of yourself, you're never going to fully be genuine or open. And that's why part of you might not even trust the person you're with, because you think that they're doing the same to you because you're doing it to them. You may crave intimacy, but you've never been given the tools to build it. Very common with guys with daddy issues. A lot of these I'm an alpha male on the internet type of guys, they're these weak little man children because they just haven't healed their wounds. Number 7, last but not least, repeating his pattern or rebelling against it. You either become your father or you do everything you can to be the opposite. Either way, you're still living in reaction to him. And the wound here is you think, I don't know how to lead properly without repeating or rejecting him. You don't have a model for healthy masculinity, only extremes. Hence why we see guys go red pill, manosphere, I don't need anyone, I'm a lone wolf. You're afraid of becoming like your father, but you're also unsure of how to break the cycle. And last but not least, you're not leading from vision, you're leading from pain. Hence why I mentioned earlier in the video, A lot of guys, they want to be successful because they want to prove someone wrong. I'm going to show my parents, or I'm going to show that ex, right? And you got to make a decision from a place of love. Calm, rational, sober-minded when you're at peace. You don't make a life decision to get vengeance or to prove a point to someone. You make a life decision because it's right, because it's morally true, and it helps those around you, and it's good. So many men are living in reaction to stuff that their parents in their childhood had done to them. So you need to let go. You need to heal. And my final thoughts are this. A man with a father wound doesn't need to be fixed, but he does need to be honest. If you see yourself in any way, in any of these 7 signs I've mentioned, please know that you're not broken. But ignoring the pain won't make it go away. You don't need more validation. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need another woman to heal your boyhood wounds. What you do need is to ask yourself and start with one question. What did I need from my father that I never got? And whatever that is, whether it's love, whether it's connection, if your father's still alive and you can reach out to him, sit down, have a conversation, lay everything out on the table. If he's not, say a prayer and move on, or speak to someone who was really close to him, and then you have to make peace with it. And write down on a list whatever it is that you lacked from him, and look at your life now and where that lack is reflected in, and then work on filling your gaps by being honest, by slowly communicating, and strengthening your connection with those around you. This is where healing begins. And if you'd like to learn more about this, I actually made a post about this in my relationship community the other day, actually. Let me find it. Do you have daddy issues? Yeah. And there were guys down below in the comments, speaking about this, because some of them recognize that they have daddy issues. And if you'd like to learn more about the community, or you'd want my help personally, I'll leave a link down below, because we have a group call every Friday each 2 weeks. So every Friday, every 2 weeks, there's a group call you can hop on. We go through any questions you have, and I think it'll be a great place for all of you guys to learn. And with that said, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Are you a man who has unresolved daddy issues? If so, drop a comment. If you know anybody in your life who's struggling and this video may help them, send this their way. And with that said, I'll see you all in the next one.